screen. All right, so I'm going to give a quick 15-minute overview here of Solver. Solver's quick start for Acumatica. And Solver is what we call an extended financial planning and analysis solution. So that's xFP&A for short, a little bit of a mouthful. But what that means is we give you all the tools you need to manage and monitor your performance. So that's going to come in the form of reporting, planning, and analysis. And I'll break down those categories a little bit more, and we'll show some of that here in the demonstration. So for starters, one thing I want to point out that's unique about Solver and where I think we really add the most value for our customers is how we can become that single source of the truth, right? So when we're planning, we're budgeting and forecasting, we're reporting, we're consolidating data sources. Oftentimes we're jumping between different systems, we're downloading files, we might be bringing that all together in Excel. But what we can do within Solver is we have the ability to connect to essentially any data source. And now, instead of going into all of these disparate systems, you now have one solution, one cloud-based simple solution where you can see it all in one place. So what that looks like, having worked with hundreds of customers over the way too many years I've probably been at Solver, I don't want to age myself. This is what that would typically look like, right? So we know Acumatica, right? That's going to be a key data source. If we're talking about reporting and planning, we can't, omit that. That's going to be sort of priority one. So of course, that's going to be something that we want to be able to access from Solver. But some other key areas that might be outside of Acumatica, you might have some additional CRM data, potentially payroll data that might be with like an ADP or a Paychex that you want to use for budgeting, maybe even detailed marketing information. A lot of folks I talk to have data that might reside only in an Excel or a CSV file, right? We want to bring that online, take it out of sort of that manual process. Sometimes there's even internal homegrown databases. So we have ways to connect to all of those different types of systems and bring it together within Solver. So in my brief demo, these are the 4 key areas that I'm going to focus on. So these are what we address with Solver: reporting. So that's financial and operational, so not just your financial statements. Analysis. So we're going to look at some more visual interpretations of our data through dashboards and KPIs. We'll talk a little bit about consolidation. Solver does have a complete consolidation engine. And then planning. We have a comprehensive planning suite for your budgeting, forecasting, long-term strategic planning. One thing that does make Solver very unique is how we accelerate time to value and get our customers up and running very, very quickly. So that's our accelerated onboarding through our patented quick start deployment technology. This allows us to plug right into Acumatica and start getting your financial data flowing in immediately. From there, you're able to access some of our pre-built out-of-the-box financial templates that work immediately. And this gives you those results in days and hours versus traditional solutions where you're often looking at weeks and months to start getting the information flowing, starting to be able to share reports and build your budget. So we want to get that to you much quicker. So I'm going to now go into a demo here within Solver and show you some of these components in action. So first thing first, I'm going to talk about that quick start deployment. So with Solver's Quick Start, here you can see our marketplace of connectors. This is how we have that ability to connect across all of your data sources. If I go to Acumatica, you can see I have the ability to create Quick Start connection. This is a simple wizard-driven process. So I just follow through the prompts, put in my credentials, drag and drop what I want to see as far as my data mapping. And within a very short amount of time, I now have my data flowing from Acumatica into Solver. That's step 1. The second step is as soon as we do that, we now have access to our Solver marketplace of templates. So that automatically enables as soon as our Acumatica connection is set up. And I can access this here by going to the marketplace icon. So here I can go through and it's sort of like an Amazon shopping experience. I can see all of the different templates. If I'm looking for, let's say if I go down here to my Acumatica section, maybe I want some control reports. These are reports that help me validate my data. Maybe I want some financial GL reports. I can access that here, like some balance sheets, profit and loss statements, or analysis, more visual type reports. Anything that I like the looks of, all I have to do is add that to my install, click Install Templates, and it's now immediately available for me. I can run that out of the box. I don't have to make any modifications. So that's the Solver Quick Start Setup experience. Now let's go into those 4 different quadrants and let's talk about each of those areas. I'll give you a quick brief example so you can see each of those things in action and what that might look like for a typical Solver user. So now we're set up, now we're ready to go. So let's look at that user experience. So here I am logging into Solver. This is my Solver home screen for my personal user. I can see any activity here, such as assignments that I might have outstanding. So if I'm participating in the budget process, I can see that here. I also can see my recent reports that I've accessed and any favorites that I might want to view. So I'm going to go into one of my favorites here. If we're talking about reporting, let's start with reporting. And I have a favorite P&L that I like to access. So I'm going to click right into that. And I'm going to take a look. All right. So within my Solver report here, I have the ability to run this for the selections that I'd like to make. I can choose things like periods, if I have multiple companies or departments, whatever your structure in Acumatica is, that's what you'll be able to choose. But here, I'm going to choose the period I want, and let's put this into full screen mode to get a better look at this. So one thing I like to point out here is when you're looking at this report, you'll see we have a mix of some visual elements. We have some of our black and white comparative numbers here, current month, prior month, variance to prior year. This is our layout, right? So when we're building a Solver report, we do have those out-of-the-box templates, which I'll show you an example, but we also can customize our own reports using our Excel-based designer to get the exact presentation that we want. So here, if I want a little bit visual on top, I want to add some highlighting for variances, I want to have a certain number of columns and structure, I can do all of that within Solver. The other ability I have is I can right-click and drill down into my transactions and see my underlying data from Acumatica. So if I want to see the journal entries that are posting here, I can go ahead, right-click, and see those underlying GL transactions, or even if I want to enable it, I can start to connect to my subledgers and I can drill into that as well. So just a great way to do some on-the-fly analysis when you're in the solution and you want to see, okay, well, what makes up this variance? What makes up this detail? So that's an example of a financial report that might be to my own specifications, right? This might be something that your company is familiar with and you want to replicate that same report that everyone is used to seeing. But let's take a look now at that analysis quadrant, right? Where we can do a little bit more visualization. So here, I'm going to go to my template reports, which I've grouped together in Solver. And I have a specific report I want to show you, which is my profit and loss interactive analysis. And this is an out-of-the-box template, so from that template marketplace that you can plug in and install and start using. Now, what's unique about this particular report is it's going to allow us to select different areas of our profit and loss statement and analyze them. So I can do that here by going to my profit and loss drop down here. Here I can see all of the key areas of my P&L, right? So I can see my different revenue groupings. I can see, if I scroll down, things like my EBITDA, my net income, and I can select any of those and I can immediately see the trend. So this gives me a quick way to spot any opportunities, any variances. And it's a great way for users that maybe looking at these black and white numbers isn't as impactful for them, but spotting these trends and being able to see this in more of a trended format, this can easily highlight those areas of concern and interest. So this is a great example of an out-of-the-box template that you can use for analysis. And there's many more where that came from. Next quadrant I want to quickly focus on is consolidation within Solver. So Solver has a complete consolidation engine. So if you have multiple entities in Acumatica, we can consolidate that. But we go beyond that. So if you, for example, acquire another company and need to consolidate that, maybe they're on a totally different ERP system, we have the ability to bring that all together, automate elimination entries, and pull everything together within consolidated financial statements. So let me show you an example of that. So back here into my Solver report templates. And I am going to go to my consolidation reports. So let's go here to this category. And the one I'm going to show here is a consolidating balance sheet. So this is going to have our different entities across the columns. And within this report, I can choose the level of roll-up I want. So I can do a full consolidation, I can do a partial consolidation. If I have different consolidation roll-ups or ownerships that I want to be able to report off of, full flexibility to do that. Also, if there's currency or different ledgers, we can support that too. But what you'll notice in this particular balance sheet is that we have all of our eliminations here accounted for. So we have each entity, we have those eliminations, which can be automated in Solver or input. And then we have the consolidated balance sheet numbers. So a very seamless solution if you're doing any sort of consolidation and you find you have some manual processes, manual adjustments, that's where you can typically get a lot of efficiencies with Solver. All right. Last piece that I will show you is around planning, which is my favorite part of Solver. This is where I see so many customers that I work with really get a lot of value, save a lot of time, and get much more accuracy with what they're doing. So I'll give you an example with something that's pretty familiar for most folks, and that is a compensation and benefits budget. That's usually a huge part of our budget, often our largest expense. So I'm going to go here to Solver to my input templates. So this is the library of all of my budgeting and forecasting models. So some of these might be out of the box. Some of these may be ones that we've built to our own specifications using the Excel-based designer. Now, as a budget administrator, what I can do is I can assign out any of these models to my budget contributors to complete, right? So I can say, hey, I need each department head to complete their personnel budget. What'll happen then is they'll get notified, they'll get an email notification. They also, like here when I logged in, you could see I had a notification here telling me that I had an active assignment. I can go right into my assignment here. And from within this assignment, what I'll be able to do is I can go ahead and make any adjustments to my budget, but it's locked down the area that I'm budgeting for and the period and the version of the budget, but I can still go in, make my adjustments and submit this for approval. So a personnel budget, I might go in and put in some salary increases for employees. If someone's leaving, I might put in an end month. I can add in new headcount here. I can do all of that once I'm happy. If I hit complete assignment, that's going to send it to my designated approver. They can take a look at it. If it all checks out, perfect. They can then send it on down the line and finalize that budget, and we can immediately start reporting off it. If not, if they have revisions, no problem. They can isolate those, send them back to me. And all of that history gets tracked here in this Solver activity log. So you can see any conversation back and forth, when it was started, when it was approved, and all of that information. All right. So that's the budgeting piece. One thing that is important to also mention is that as we're budgeting in Solver and as we're finalizing it, because Solver is one tool, one solution, I can go immediately back into my reports. I can run a report. I can compare actual to budget. I don't have to consolidate data, do any sort of manipulation. It's all here. My updated budget numbers, if I'm reforecasting, that's here, and my information from Acumatica and my other key data sources. So that is a quick overview of the Solver xFP&A solution. I will mention as well that we do have some industry-specific accelerators. So while we are industry agnostic, we work horizontally across every single industry. There are a few industries that we do have some accelerators for. So if you fit into one of these industries, we can show you exactly what that solution looks like. And lastly, I will leave you with this white paper that we have, a guide to choosing the best extended financial planning and analysis solution. If you use this QR code, you can go ahead and download a copy of this. This gives you some good, just general insight on key things to look into that we hear from a lot of the prospects that we're working with that are really important. So just some good things to consider if you're in the market for an xFP&A. Told you it was a mouthful solution. All right. And with that, I think I've covered everything I set out to cover. And Amy, I'll give it back to you.
Thanks, Stephanie. You actually have a question.
Oh, fantastic.
How often does data refresh between Solver and Acumatica?
Good question. So the data refresh, you have some flexibility in that. By default, most of our customers will do an overnight refresh, but you can also set it to refresh more frequently or kick it off on demand. So little flexibility based on your needs.
Awesome.